Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Have you ever asked yourself what it means to be financially free, to have that freedom? What does that mean for you? What do you define that as? How do you know when you're reaching it and that you're on track to get there? Well, my guest today, Eric Brotman, is somebody who has worked with many families in many circumstances throughout the country that has been able to assist and come alongside them to help define that and get them to that place where they can feel more confident in their own financial freedom in their present and in their future. So, Eric, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Zach, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I want to ask you, as we have asked that question, when we talk about financial freedom, what does that mean to you?
Financial freedom or financial independence to me is the moment in your life where work is optional. It doesn't mean you're retired, certainly not by definition. It doesn't mean that you're idle. It means that any work you're doing, whether it's for money or whether it's volunteerism, is because it drives your passion and it makes you joyful. And essentially, to me, independence is the lack of needing to work, not necessarily the lack of work itself.
Awesome. I like that answer. Now, that also leads me into, just preface this, we're going to get back to it later in this episode, but you have a book called Don't Retire, Graduate.
Yes.
Now, before we talk much about that, I just wanted to say that because that a concept of, some people will get to that point of feeling like, okay, I got to retire. And now what?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Retirement in the traditional sense is a fate worse than death, Zach. No one should do it.
Right.
People don't thrive. And it's actually very sad that people work 40 or 45 years to get to that moment where they can retire. And then they wake up one Monday morning, they don't know what to do. And 3 years later, their health has failed and they're dead. I mean, it really is tragic. It seems to me that planning for retirement is planning to take the step forward to the next step of your life rather than disappearing, retreating, and quitting. And so if you find things that you love to do, whether they make you money or not, once you've reached that independence point, you're retired. And working because you love it is totally different than working because you got to make a mortgage payment or rent.
Right. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Now, we're going to get back to that topic of the book, but let's talk a little bit about how you got started in your journey on becoming an entrepreneur and what you're doing today.
Sure. I started the traditional way as an English major in college.
Of course.
The path to finance runs directly through the English department in almost all cases. I actually studied English and psychology and was planning on law school, teaching or law or something, and went through all the process to apply to and get into and even pay a deposit to law school, and then didn't go. It felt like it wasn't my path. And the way this played out, I had taken a job out of college. This is now 31 years ago. I took a job out of college working for a brokerage firm in the legal department. It was a great way to spend a year or two before I went back to school. And I fell in love with the financial world and out of love with the law, quite candidly. And so now I'm an accredited estate planner. I do a lot of estate planning work, a lot of financial and wealth management work, but I didn't spend 3 years of my life and $100,000 on law school. So I feel like it was the best financial decision I ever made in my life, and probably the more joyful decision too. So started my practice actually in 1994.
Okay.
And at that time, as a young guy with no real network and certainly no net worth of my own, I had to start in a way where I could get employed. And so I spent 5 years in the insurance business. And the insurance business it's like a graveyard for careers, because people go into it and either they barely get by or they don't get by at all. It's really a very tough slog, but I was determined not to let that deter me. In 1998, I earned my CFP designation and became a certified financial planner designee, and was starting to look for ways to do financial planning instead of simply doing insurance work. And I met a more senior guy who was looking to start a firm, and I became the sweat equity to his venture capital and learned how to start a firm. And fast forward about 4 years, I was ready to start on my own, and we treated that as a graduation rather than a divorce. And I started what is now BFG Financial Advisors in 2003, actually on Halloween, which is a great day to start a company. And so that was 2003. And now what was one full-time and one part-time person is now 20 people and clients in 36 states and 650 families and close to $700 million under management. And it's been a wild journey for 21 years.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, when you get started in a business, that can still be kind of daunting. Now, you had some experience working with another person who has backing of that business that you were a part of and getting it started and putting your sweat equity into that. But then when you went out on your own, were you experiencing any doubts, any fears, any trepidation?
Oh, terror, absolute terror. First of all, I borrowed money from everywhere, Zach. I borrowed money from my house. I borrowed money from my mom. I borrowed money against credit cards, against life insurance policies, any place that I could get money because no bank would talk to me. I was a startup and they wanted to see 2 years of tax returns, which I didn't have. And so no bank would lend to me. And it's funny now, 21 years later, these banks will trip over themselves to get 10 minutes with me. But at the time, they wouldn't even hear my business plan. So it is what it is. I guess that's karma. But so I borrowed from every place. And I remember the day we were moving into new space, and it was all of 1,800 square feet, which I was going to share with another business. Like literally, we took like 900 square feet on in a suburban Maryland location. And I'm sitting on the floor. There's no furniture yet. The place is pristine. It's been carpeted and painted and papered. It looks nice. And we're waiting for the furniture to be delivered. And I'm sitting there in jeans and a sweatshirt and the sneakers thinking, what have I done? What is going on? Like, I cannot believe it. And, you sign for things. You sign a long-term rental deal and you sign for a copier lease and a phone contract and an IT firm and all of this stuff. And I basically said, I'm either going to sink or swim, but it's going to happen on my own. And so we started with one full-time, one part-time person. I took no salary in the first year. And then even in the second year where I was taking enough of a little tiny salary so I could fund a simple IRA for myself, every employee had direct deposit and I didn't because half the time I couldn't cash my own check and it sat in a drawer for a while. I mean, it was very, very slim pickings in the beginning. And obviously there's been a wonderful geometric curve since that time. But yeah, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And by the way, I paid mom back first because of all the places where you don't need a loan shark coming after you. It's got to be your mom. So she got paid back before anybody else.
I love that. I think that family first in all circumstances.
Well,
those that lend you money.
Yes, well, especially those who lend you money. I didn't want to ruin Thanksgiving. I don't mind having a bank mad at me, but I couldn't. If my mom was upset, what was I going to do?
You're a good son, Eric.
I hope so. I hope so.
I think that's a story when you talk about the fear and the terror and putting it all on the line and then realizing, you had to sink or swim, but you were doing it on your own. That seems to resonate with a lot of newer business owners and also is one of the reasons why it seems that people do not make the step into becoming an entrepreneur or starting that business that they've been considering for years. How did you get yourself in the mindset where you could take that leap?
I think some of it, and you use the word mindset, which I think is really helpful. Some of it is belief in oneself. And I certainly said, I have a concept, I have an idea, I believe people will follow me. I had gotten an enormous amount of education in my 5+ years. So I took the time where I was being underpaid and didn't have a whole lot of folks to work with to be in school dramatically and did all of the alphabet soup that I needed to do to know as much as I could in my 20s because I couldn't fake experience. I couldn't fake gray hair and a bald spot. They're coming naturally now. But at the time, I couldn't fake experience and I wouldn't try to, but I had to have the knowledge base so that I could solve problems and speak intelligently about things. And so I think I just believed in myself. And I surrounded myself with really amazing people and still do, who I think are not only smart and ethical, but also who love to do things I don't love to do and vice versa. So, we have a really diverse crew of interesting young people from all over who love to do some of the things that I don't love to do anymore. And it has been a terrific way to synchronize efforts.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just getting into that mindset and being willing and also acknowledging that education, that experience that you were gaining and had gained, that you were going to be capable of taking this forward, but just needed to proceed and get into it and take that risk, but knowing it was worth it.
Yeah.
So fast forward
Mhm.
21 years now,
Sure.
you have a lot of people that you're working with, a lot of
Mhm.
families, a lot of individuals, and you're a larger organization. I mean, you have a lot more under management. There are companies that are of a bigger size that will make that choice to just only work with larger clients, meaning that clients of higher net worth.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that, and how do you differentiate yourselves from others?
I love that question, particularly because I have the answer I've dreamt of having, which is we like to swim against the stream.
Hmm.
So many firms are saying we won't talk to you unless you have $1 million or $2 million or whatever it is. And I feel it more like the Statue of Liberty, like send us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, and we'll make this work. And while that's an exaggeration, the reality is that we can do wonderful private wealth work for very high net worth families. But we also have 4 young advisors here who do an incredible job in a program we call Financial Planning for All, that really is designed to be an affordable way for different families to get access to financial advice that doesn't have them sort of being preyed on by salespeople. And so I think this is a great training ground. We're kind of like a teaching hospital for financial advisors now.
Yep.
And there's oversight and there's collaboration and there's an incredible amount of education around it. But I'm proud to say that we don't have a minimum for assets. In fact, we have some clients who want our advice on a subscription basis rather than having assets managed with us at all. And while I'm not sure that's the most efficient way to do it, for the right client who really wants that, or for a situation where there are assets that for one reason or another aren't immediately manageable, it really works out well and people can get advice. We've had a lot of folks say, I've been turned away by other firms. Can you help me? And the answer is yes. And at the moment where they either sell a business or they inherit money or their wealth grows organically or any of those other things, all those other firms are going to be calling on them. They're going to say, thanks, we're good. We're with BFG. And it's the same story that happened with those banks. The first
Hmm.
bank that finally lent to me 2 years in is still my bank 19 years later. Not necessarily because they're the best, but because they took a little bit of risk on me. And I wanted to make that a position of loyalty. And so I think that happens in lots of different aspects of our professional lives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like it resonates well with you and your story, where you can experience individuals who they need that support now, they need that help now, and to be able to not provide that would result in them perhaps never getting to that point where they have that financial freedom that they are seeking. And instead, you can get people who are able to then make the steps to become more financially free and perhaps then have some inheritance or something that occurs along the way where all of a sudden they now need additional support, where they're going to go with the people that are loyal to them from the beginning when they had little.
That's 100% right. And there are still people out there who either we can't serve or
Mhm.
shouldn't because
Sure.
I think like the doctor has the Hippocratic
Yep.
oath, which is first do no harm. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book and did a workbook so that folks very, very inexpensively could sort of build their own financial plan and figure out their
Mhm.
own path while they're getting ready. They don't necessarily have to engage a firm like ours or any others, and they don't have to be, sheep to the wolves. We
Yeah.
also put a number of resources out online that are free for people who don't even want to buy a book and they just want to
Mhm.
go out and get some basic education, whether it's personal financial literacy, whether it's about ways to save money on taxes, whether it's about buying your first home. We have both BFG Library and BFG University out online, and the resources for the most part are free and available to
Mhm.
anybody who wants them.
Are those available through your website then?
They are. They are. You can go to our primary website, or you can actually go to bfguniversity.com or bfglibrary.com and go directly to what you're looking for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned the book. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that book and kind of what is the premise of it and
Shameless
where.
plug. I have to. I couldn't resist. The premise of it is it's a path to financial independence act.
Yeah.
It is written like it's a college experience. That's the graduate theme, so it's got a school theme to it. But it is definitely not a textbook.
Mhm.
It's written first person. It's written in a way that's designed to be accessible. It's not full of too much jargon. Wherever I can avoid it, I tried to.
Mhm.
And it's written in a way that is a little bit linear, where I, instead of having chapters, I have semesters. And so you have freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year of your financial lives. And freshman year is a lot about some basics. It's about employee benefits for the first time, or dealing with student loans, or maybe personal debt, which a lot of young people have, unfortunately. And you get toward your sophomore year and you start talking about, am I going to get married or have children or buy a home, or some of the big decisions that we face in life. And
Yep.
junior year is very significant about investments and about taxes, because that's when you tend to be in your highest net worth, or your highest income at least,
Mhm.
period of time. And you start really growing some wealth in that sort of junior year of your life. And by the way, this isn't age based. I mean, some people enter the junior year of their lives at 28 and some are 58, and that's okay. And then the senior year is part of it's estate planning and some of the risk management things you need to do. But a lot of it is also visioning. It's figuring out what you want to be when you grow up, and how are you going to spend what could be half of your adult life. And so when we talk about retiring, we talk about it as a graduation to the next phase of life, but we also talk about it qualitatively, not just quantitatively, because some of it are the things that you decide to spend time and energy on that bring you joy. And ultimately, it's more than a bucket list. A bucket list is great temporarily, but there's more to it than that. If you're going to be potentially for 30 years, you don't just need a list of 5 to-dos.
Right. There's a lot more time that will take than only the 5 or 10 or 20 things that someone might have on a bucket list.
Correct.
So what is the title of that book for those that may not be watching this?
The title of the book is Don't Retire, Graduate. It's available at our website, but also at Amazon or any place where you buy books. And it is the second edition. It was written and updated for 2024. The reason that I did an updated edition is I realized that the first one, which was some 4 years old, was had some things that were timely but not timeless. And so I wanted to make this more timeless so that I don't have to redo it again every couple of years, because the laws change and the limits change and legislation happens. And so I'm hoping that this is a little bit more timeless, because rewriting a book is actually harder than writing one from go. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it again. I think it's perfect. And in 3-4 years, I'm sure we'll be having conversation otherwise. But right now, it
Yeah,
feels
right.
perfect. It feels
Perfect.
done. Yeah.
It sounds like a book that could be a good graduation gift, and it's that time of year right now.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect graduation gift, particularly for somebody who's going to start their first job, or has student loans they're going to have to start paying on. Some of it's about basic budgeting, some of it, which by the way, on lots of shows, I have referred to that as the B word. I don't love
Uh-huh.
the idea of a budget, but you have to know what your cash flow is, and whether you're net positive or net negative at the end of the month, and how to start saving. And I call it paying yourself first, making sure that you're taking advantage of some automated savings or investment regularly, so that you can begin building wealth with your first paycheck. Because if you wait, it'll never be a good time. It's kind of like people say, I'm going to wait to have kids till I can afford them. I'm like, I got news for you. You can never afford them. You just have kids if you want to have a family. But it's, if you wait to do that until you can afford it, if you wait to get financial advice until you feel like you're wealthy enough for financial advice, you've missed the point. Some of the point of financial advice, financial planning, and all of this strategy is to build it in the first place. So why not take advantage of that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, as I think about this, I wondered if you are also working with individual business owners as well. Because I mean, our concept is talking with entrepreneurs, and we are an audience of entrepreneurs that are often listening to us. And so, do you do any consultation with business owners that may need that? Maybe their personal finances are still needing a little bit of shaping, but then they now have taken on something new, and that part of their life needs a little bit of support and shaping as well.
Yes, for a business owner or executive, the answer is yes. The business itself typically is not something we would represent, because we don't do employee benefits, we don't do group health insurance and that kind of work. But we work with the owner and his or her families to try and get money out of the business into their personal pocket, ideally in a tax favored way and a strategic way. And we can certainly, I can walk the walk and talk the talk about being an entrepreneur and getting started with that. But some of it's just picking the right retirement plan, or picking the right office space, or figuring out the right accountant, or the right legal documents. So some of it absolutely falls in line with entrepreneurship. But the focus is going to be, how do we make sure that the business you're starting, or the business you've been running for 20 years, is creating an amplitude of wealth and abundance for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes sense as well. So in starting and running and growing your company. Has there been any moments where you can look back and say, wow, it just really touched me when that happened, or that story that really brought me great satisfaction or fulfillment, or just that success that I saw occur when? Anything like that you can highlight?
There's actually so many, and part of that is sort of why, that's my why, is
Yeah.
seeing not only our clients go through amazing experiences, whether it's a positive experience like they've gotten their kid through college without a student loan, or they've planned for their own financial retirement and their own financial independence, and they're there. We've had a lot of people who have thanked us in all kinds of different ways about, hey, I'm not sure I'd be here without you, and that's an amazing feeling. We've also taken clients through some really hard things, when you
Mhm.
when you lose a parent, or when there's a divorce, or when there's a job loss, or other kind of difficult things. And so it feels incredibly human to be able to have those conversations. And it frankly, Zach, is one of the reasons why I'm not concerned that AI or robo advisors are going to replace the human being, because despite all best efforts, I think there's something to be said for the individual condition that we're in. I would also say I've seen a lot of successes amongst our employees, many
Yeah.
of whom are now owners of the company. So I've got 3, 4 people who started as interns 13,
Mhm.
14 years ago, who are now shareholders in the firm and are building some of their own wealth and abundance, and who are having incredible success professionally. And I'm living vicariously through them now. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm the old guy in the office, which is a bizarre thing, because I was always the young, precocious one. I'm no longer either of those things. But I read a book recently called From Strength to Strength, which was so helpful to me, because it showed how you have kind of an intelligence curve and then a wisdom curve, and how gracefully you jump from intelligence to wisdom in your career will impact not only the success of your later career, but also your life. And so
Mhm.
I'm no longer using the education that I got 30 years ago nearly as much as I'm using the life lessons that I've had from talking to hundreds and thousands of people. And I'm able to work with people who have just finished those educational programs, who are
Mhm.
absolutely on it and technically sound. And
Yep.
that combination makes us, I think, a really, really awesome team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's strength, I think, in the ability to share in your experience and your wisdom from your life experiences, but the life experience of all those clients that you've worked with, and then having the team of professionals, some that are more newly out of their education, who have that expertise of what's current, what is happening right now, what is cutting edge, to be able to apply that together makes for a great combination, I can imagine.
Well, and it's interesting, because earlier this year I finished another graduate program at the American College on philanthropy.
Mhm.
And so I'm growing my own acumen in the areas of charitable planning and philanthropy, and sort of bringing to our clientele and
Mhm.
to the community at large ways to do well by doing good.
Yeah.
And it has completely recharged my battery. I'm so excited for the next 5, 10 years and what that's going to bring, in working with families to work their visions, and not just to take care of themselves and their
Yeah.
kids, but also to live their passions, and to help all the organizations that mean something to them. So I'm still learning. I'm
Yep.
definitely I'm not going anywhere for a while. I will eventually not be CEO. We're working at a succession plan here, and I
Mhm.
identified my successor, who's amazing, and she's going to do a great job. But my plan is to be a growth officer, and to work with clients on the estate and philanthropy side, and really just to continue to have meaningful, amazing relationships and conversations with humans. So that's what I
Yeah.
like to do.
As we go and grow, we continue to shape and define our passions, our whys, our reasons, and continue to find fulfillment in areas sometimes new, sometimes ones that we have long awaited for, as we're continuing to make that progress towards them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And now that I'm working truly for fun, I feel like I'm already retired, even though I'm sitting here in the office.
Yep.
I'm working for fun, and if it doesn't bring me joy, if I don't love it, I don't want to do it anymore. And I
Yeah.
think after 30 plus years of owning a business and running a practice, I think I'm at that stage where I can honestly say, if this is fun, I want to do it, whether it's wildly lucrative or not. But if it's not fun, I don't care what it pays me anymore. I,
Yeah.
I, I would much rather just do the things that make me excited to get up every morning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one other thing I remember from when we spoke before,
Mhm.
and I wanted to just make sure I brought up, is when you are working remotely with clients who may not be in your immediate area, there are some marked moments in their lives where they might need some additional support.
Mhm.
If I recall correctly, you said that sometimes you'll go out, or somebody from your team will go out to those areas where they're at to work with them directly as opposed to over a screen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we have clients in 36 states, so that is
Mhm.
an impossible thing to do on a constant basis.
Yep.
But when there's an event in somebody's life and it's major, it's the loss of a loved one, or it's some significant event in someone's financial lives. We do have the horses here to have boots on the ground, so to speak, and so it does
Yeah.
mean we can visit with people. I don't think there's a substitute for breaking bread and spending time with people. There
Hmm.
really isn't. Screens are wonderful in terms of efficiencies, and they're great for routine activities.
Yeah.
There's no need to fly to Wyoming to share how a portfolio has done. That makes no sense to anybody. And clients, even local clients, would rather sometimes hop on a screen than sit in traffic to get to us too, which
Hmm.
is perfectly fine. So efficiency can be created for things that are routine. But for things that are really intimate or really challenging or require a human contact, we can absolutely do that. And I do travel a bunch. Certainly not the road warrior I once was, but I still travel a bunch. And we have such great folks here who can hop on a plane and be someplace, that day if need be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that it's more than just a business, it's a personal mission as well. So, I want to ask you one more question that
Sure.
I ask all my guests. If you were to be given $1 million today with no strings attached to that, how would you invest that in your business or another endeavor, and why?
Well, I would do two things with a windfall like that. Number one, I am on a quest to be completely debt free by
Mhm.
2028, and I have two homes. I'm blessed with two homes, both of which still have small mortgages. And despite the arbitrage available with low interest loans, I would want to be debt free immediately. So I'm working toward that. That's the first thing I would do. And after that, but this sounds so boring, and I apologize for it, Zach, but I would probably make sure that I have some dry powder and some cash for opportunities or
Mhm.
for things that come down the pike, because I've done, I think, a really good job of putting money away and investing it routinely and regularly for 3+ decades.
Yep.
What I think I'll benefit from next, other than being fully debt free, is having some extra cash on the sidelines, particularly now that cash can actually get you a rate of return again. I mean, for years
Mhm.
it was zero and it felt silly. But
Right.
now that you can actually get a return on some of that money, I think I would do that first. And anything I actually invested at this point, it probably wouldn't be in the company because we're at a
Mhm.
mature stage.
Yep.
But whatever I did, I would not do lump sum. I'm not dropping six figures or seven figures
Yeah.
into anything. I would be taking that into cash and spreading it out over a period of several years, rather than hoping that this is a good day for that. The
Mhm.
luck factor is brutal. I really like the factors of time and of being methodical, and don't love the luck factor. And so I would avoid that.
Yeah. Yep. Wisdom again, right there. Now, Eric, I want to thank you for joining me today. Now, if there are individuals who have interest in accessing your resources, finding out more about you or the book, what is the best way to connect with you or find more information?
I'm going to give you two websites. One is for our company, BFG Financial Advisors, which is at
Mhm.
bfgfa.com. And the other is all of the media and resources and writing and publishing, and that's at brotmanmedia.com.
Perfect. I love that. And I definitely would encourage people to look at those resources, check out the book, and then think about, if you are 28, if you are 18, if you're 58, there's always a stage in your life where you could use that support from someone like Eric and his team. So, Eric, thank you again for joining me on the show today.
Oh, it's been a ton of fun. I knew it would be, and I wish you continued success.